Sausage.
Hello, everyone. This is Attack the Backlog, the podcast where I, Marcus Nez, tries to make a dent in their backlog one game at a time. This episode is all about Revenge of the Savage Planet. I just played Journey to the Savage Planet and followed that up with Revenge of the Savage Planet. And it is, in fact, Revenge that got me to go back and play Journey because I played about an hour of Revenge, said, I like this. Why don't I go back and play the first game first, like a normal person, and then I can come back to Revenge? So if you've already watched my video for Journey to the Savage Planet, it's going to be a lot of that because it's very similar. And if you've not watched that, it is the same thing. And that is to say, Revenge of the Savage Planet is very much so a focused No Man's Sky where you are sent to a planet. This time you are sent there via, I forget the name of the new corporation that has purchased Kindred Aerospace, and that doesn't really matter. I was just thinking more so that at the end of the game, there was, I think, in memoriam to the owner of Kindred Aerospace in the game, in the fiction. So I think maybe that actor passed away, which is sad. Or it's just some wary odd humor. But I would assume I should have looked that up probably. So maybe not. But Revenge of the Savage Planet is a game where you're sent to an alien planet and asked to explore it. But in this case, while the first game took place on a singular planet, Revenge takes place across 4 planets. Was the 5th one a planet, or was that the robot dude's little home base thing? Either way, instead of having a singular planet that is comprised of various biomes, you have single planets that are singular biomes. So you have your deserty planet, then you have your one that is kind of both ice and lava, and your more foresty one, and so on and so forth. And there are 4 of those, maybe a 5th one. I can't remember the 5th one, it was an actual planet or not. But your basic task is going around exploring these planets, scanning all the flora and fauna, etc., and crafting new items for yourself, improving your gear through crafting, following a very light narrative that you can engage with however much you want or how little you want. The big change, though, in Revenge over Journey is the transition from first person to third person. What this does is it allows Revenge to really give your character specifically a lot more personality. Because in first person, you're not really seeing anything other than your hands. How much personality can you add through that? Not that much. But now you can get personality in both the way you look. So at the start, you look like just a normal space explorer, but you will unlock new gear through exploring the world. And at the start, there's a decent amount. There's a Dave the Diver skin. So if you want to play the game looking like Dave the Diver, you can do that. But you can also dress up like a raccoon mascot. There was a kind of electronic bunny techno thing you can do. But you can also mix and match. So what I did was gave my character a kind of roguish adventurer type of suit and boots. And then I gave myself, instead of gloves, raccoon hands, raccoon paws, and the raccoon mascot helmet, quote unquote helmet. And I thought that was a good look. It also ended up making the game feel somewhat reminiscent of stuff like Ratchet and Clank, where you play as a humanoid animal creature. But what the transition does in not just giving you a visual representation of your character, it gives yourself a lot more personality through the animations. The animations in this game are lovely. They're so full of life. They're very exaggerated in a cartoony way, in a way that I really appreciate. I loved the animations across the board. And they liven up the creatures. There were creatures in the first game in Journey, and they did have their own personality, but I think they go up a level in Revenge. One of the things I love is the way creatures interact with each other and the way they interact with the world. So, in addition to just having these lively animations for your character, you also have very distinct animations with the way you engage with certain parts of the world. So, if you are walking through water, you're kind of doing these large tiptoes because you don't want to get too wet while you're walking in it. If you walk across a slimy, slippery substance, you'll do a very exaggerated waving your arms around your feet, just trying to keep your feet from falling under you. And I love all that. But also, if you are engaging with one of the creatures in the world and they're chasing after you and they chase after you while going through some slippery substance, they'll fall on their sides and kind of just slide across it. And that never got old to me. There's a lot of lovely humor to be had in the world through just the way everything is interacting with one another. But the game itself is, if you remove the perspective change, it is very much of the first game, but it feels expanded, not just because of the addition of multiple planets now that you can explore, but the way you engage with it. So in the first game, all you really had was your main gun, and then you would get these grenades that, with upgrades, you'd be able to carry them on you and not just use them for a fraction of a time after picking them up from their planets, from their plants, that is, that were either explosive or acid or some seeds that allow you to create grapple points. Now you have this, I don't know if it's called a goo gun, but it's basically a big water tank that you initially just can shoot water out of, that can damage certain types of enemies, but also allows you to clean up substances. So a slippery substance, a fire substance, or whatever substance, you can clean it up with your water gun. But you quickly get upgrades that allow you to shoot out the fire substance, the slippery stuff. The acid is a grenade, as is the explosive thing still that you will eventually be able to hold on to. But then there was one other type of substance. I think the electricity substance is, well, it's electro, what do you call that? Electro current, a thing that is conductive to electricity. And what you end up doing with this is, especially with the electricity one, when you come across something that is conducting electricity and you need to get that power, that electricity, to a certain other plant or part of the world, some kind of object in it, you will create a trail with your new goo gun type thing in the environment. And in some cases, you'll have creatures that can remove that, and you have to deal with them while also doing this. I didn't love that particular addition to the game because I found it brought a degree of hecticness to the environment, because when you are doing this trail of electricity that is to turn on some kind of device or part of the world, you are creating this trail that is all electricity. And it makes it so that, yes, the enemies can run into it and electrocute themselves and damage themselves. You can do the same thing. And there are parts where you are making large trails and turning a lot of the environment hazardous to everyone, including yourself. And I found that to be a little frustrating in the sense that I didn't want to, I didn't like making the world worse for me in order to solve these puzzles. It got a little frustrating in that sense. I prefer just having these things that require me to take some kind of grenade and throw it at it to either explode it and open it up or dissolve it or so on and so forth. So that was a little frustrating. In a more positive expansion upon the first game from the first game is in the first game, you had these grapple points you got to grapple, and it allowed you to grapple onto specific grapple points or grind on these specific points. In this game, they have that same mechanic where you'll eventually early on get a grapple and a lasso that allows you to, you basically use your kind of grapple thing to attack enemies and it can destroy certain more dense objects and certain creatures that have these kind of hard backs. You can destroy it with this lasso attack. But with the grapple, you have the same grapple points that you can grapple onto and swing around and all of that. And that's nice and great and wonderful. But when you get fairly late in the game, because it's a little bit longer than the first game I finished in about 7 hours, and I would say maybe the second game took me 10 hours to complete. There's still plenty of stuff to find and all that, yes. And it's maybe a little bit more generous in its pinging system and showing you where things are post or just in terms of wanting to find everything. One of the big additions too is the inclusion of an actual map. So there's no map in Journey to the Savage Planet, which is kind of wild that there's no map to look at. And they have one here. But with the grapple specifically, to go back to that, one of the nice things is that when you get later in the game and upgrade it more, you have this drone with you, a little drone buddy who is very chatty, and that could bother you. The game has the same sense of humor as Journey, but you have this drone who you can adjust the chattiness on 3 levels, just very chatty, kind of chatty, or not chatty at all. And if you turn off the chattiness entirely, the game does let you know you will miss out on certain narrative things. But again, it's all dependent on how much you want to engage with the narrative. It's not a very interesting or complex story, so it's not that big a deal if you don't follow along with it. You're not missing out unless you really enjoy the humor, then you probably want to engage with it more. But your drone who's with you, you will eventually get the ability to control them for very light, minimal puzzle scenarios. It's a very kind of pointless upgrade that you get with that. It doesn't really make you, it doesn't add a whole lot. It feels kind of shallow and I don't know why that upgrade is there, but regardless, with the drone, you eventually get the ability to use it as a grapple point. You can do it up to 2 times before having to reset by touching ground, but it allows you to navigate the world in such a free way. It is so freeing when you get that upgrade because not only do you get these 2 grapples and you can, wherever you're aiming, you'll grapple to. So you can grapple straight up, you can grapple straight in front of you, any which way, and you could do this twice. And you get quite a bit of distance when you're doing this. But on top of that, this doesn't negate or cancel out your ability to do your jumps. So you can still, I have a triple jump now. I think I will be able to get a quadruple jump, but I'm able to do these 2 grapples anywhere I want, not just on grapple points, while also utilizing my triple jumps, or I can do 2 jumps and a dash, and it allows you to get pretty much anywhere you want to go very easily. Before then, you have to worry about, is there a grapple point here? How do I do this? Can I double jump here? So on and so forth. But once you unlock that, it is so freeing. I thought, because they mentioned Spider-Man when they talk about that ability that you can unlock. It's not that, because again, you can only do it twice. I'm surprised you could even do it twice before having to touch ground and reset. But in just that, as limited as it is, it's still so freeing. And I love that mechanic. So there's a lot about Revenge that is better, that is improved over the first game. However, again, I don't love the water gun type of system, but also thinking back on it, I had some time to reflect upon it because I recorded the episode for Journey and then it was corrupted and I had to redo it. I hope that episode, the new version, turned out all right. I'm never gonna feel great about it because I thought I had a really good episode and I lost it. But in Revenge, one of the or specifically what I was getting at, because I lost my train of thought already. What I realized in reflecting upon the two games, while I really love what the transition to third person did for giving your character personality through the animations and all that, and the ability to customize your appearance, etc., I realized that the thing that was lost, and I didn't notice this when I was playing the game and enjoying myself in Revenge, that is, that the level of immersion I had between the two games was less in Revenge. And I don't know, I guess that's just inherent with the first person perspective over third person, because in first person, obviously, it is basically your perspective. And third person, you're looking at your character as opposed to quote unquote being your character. And that made me disconnect from the world. So while I enjoyed seeing the way the creatures interacted with the world, interacted with each other, the way I interacted with them and the world, I didn't feel as connected with them. So I would be exploring the world and I'd run into creatures and all that, but I more often kind of brushed them aside than I did in Journey. And that's not a bad thing exactly, but it was something that made me say, you know what, I think overall I enjoyed my time in Journey more. I also like the fact that it took place on a singular planet, and when you would get to a new area, it felt more satisfying to be in a certain biome and then reach a new biome in the same planet, on the same planet, as opposed to having to travel from planets for the biomes to now be in a more disconnected fashion in their own planets. I also think the boss fights in Revenge are a bit weaker. They're not as memorable. They don't, they just kind of were there. And I I didn't find anything about any of them particularly interesting at all. And I kind of already forgot what was there. There was the crab person. I mean the giant crab-like creature, the sandworm, then there was the robot, and maybe one other thing. But none of them, maybe the giant crab creature was the most engaging, but they're even easier than the first game and less memorable. The story, again, very light, don't have to engage with if you don't want. You have this little, instead of a home base, a singular home moving base, you have this kind of little hometown that is gradually getting updated, and one other big addition is the ability to capture creatures. But all you're really getting out of this is creating these kind of pens for the different planets where the specific creatures will be, and you can go in there and you can pet them and kind of just look at them and be like, okay, whoop-de-doo. But what you're actually doing is the kind of alpha versions of certain creatures. You have to capture them in order to research them and unlock new abilities. That'll give you the ability to do your ground pound or something like that. So that is one of the ways in which you are getting your upgrades now, which is fine, but doesn't add a whole lot. But it is just that same core gameplay loop that is very satisfying from the first game that makes both games great podcast games, where you're thrown into these worlds, these planets, and then you just explore them, and you gain resources, and you craft your items, and you improve yourself, and you have that kind of Metroidvania progression of gradually improving yourself, unlocking new abilities that allow you to explore more of the world, and so on and so forth. If that kind of loop appeals to you, I think you'll have a great time with it. If you're looking for an engaging story and stuff like that, no, you're not going to get that here. But if you just want a satisfying gameplay loop, if you like being in a world that gives you a lot of tasks and a lot of things to explore, these are great games for collectible hunters. So if you want to get all 100 plus of the orange goo health stamina upgrades and find all of the resource deposits and find all of these other collectibles and so on and so forth. These are very satisfying experiences. And like in the first game, the scanning is satisfying in the sense that you get to an area, you scan everything in sight right off the bat. But then as you explore more of that area, every time you see something that looks kind of new that you think you haven't seen before, and then you open up your scanner and you're right. Oh, I love that. I love that sense of I am so locked in. I am so immersed in this world that I noticed that this thing right now was new. And that also reminds me that another thing that the game adds is the ability to explore underwater, which is cool to be able to do that. But your underwater exploration isn't, you're not doing that much. It's more of just here's a new place to explore, but there's not as much to do underwater because you can't grapple or do this or that. So it's very light there. Yeah. Journey to the Savage Planet, very good. And Revenge of the Savage Planet is just as good. They have, what's nice about them is that they both have their strengths and weaknesses, but at their core, they're very much the same game and both very, very enjoyable. I don't think if you like one, you won't like the other. I think it's a case of each person. I think, therefore I think. But with the Savage Planet games, if you like one, you're gonna like the other. For sure. Unquestionably. But you're gonna have the person who prefers either the first game, the first person one, or the third person one. You'll have your leanings depending on what you prefer, but I would say that in both cases, they're great games, very satisfying experiences, and well worth checking out if you are a fan of exploring and collecting. If that's your kind of jam, you should have a very good time in it. Another thing about Revenge over Journey is that, at least in my time with it, it seemed to run smoothly without any kind of drops frame rate wise, which is nice because there are a few issues with the Employee of the Month edition with Journey to the Savage Planet. So that was a nice little thing as well. Looks good. Still that very lush, colorful nature to it. Yeah. Good game. good game is good. And that is going to do it for this here episode of Attack the Backlog. Once again, I am Marcus Nez. Y'all can find me pretty much everywhere at PX Sausage. If you enjoy this here show or any of the stuff I do and what have you, you can support me and my nonsense over at patreon.com/PXS. There you can get access to a monthly Q&A, a private Discord channel, along with some fancy Discord roles, or the random drop on the Patreon here or there depending on your tier. Or you could just support me to support me if that is your fancy. That is, again, patreon.com/PXS. In addition to the Patreon, you can find links to the site, the YouTube, the Discord, and so much more over at pxsausage.com. That is the letter P, the letter X, sausage.com. But that is it. That is all. As always, thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoyed this here episode, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. But for now, adios, arrivederci. Bye. It's go time.